My name is Aisha, and for 10 years, I poured my heart and soul into Sterling and Company, a marketing firm nestled in the vibrant heart of Atlanta, Georgia. I started as a junior account manager right after college, brimming with optimism and a fervent belief in hard work. The city's charm and the company's initial promise felt like a perfect fit for my big dreams. I was always the first to arrive and the last to leave, tackling every project with meticulous dedication and a genuine passion for our clients. My performance reviews consistently praised my initiative, my client relationships, and my unwavering commitment. I truly believed that my efforts would eventually translate into tangible career progression and recognition. In those early years, the idea of climbing the corporate ladder felt less like a climb and more like a natural ascent. I envisioned myself moving into leadership roles, contributing to strategic decisions, and helping to shape the future of the company. The possibilities seemed endless, fueled by my youthful ambition and the American dream. Atlanta, with its rich history and burgeoning economy, felt like a place where anyone could thrive if they worked hard enough. The office itself was a mix of old Southern charm and modern corporate efficiency, a place where traditions were respected, but innovation was also encouraged. I felt a sense of belonging, initially within its polished walls. However, after about 3 years, subtle signs began to emerge, like faint cracks in a seemingly solid foundation. My white colleagues, many of whom had joined after me or had less experience, started receiving promotions and significant raises. Their career trajectories seemed to accelerate effortlessly, while mine remained stubbornly flat. The boosts I anticipated, the senior titles, the leadership opportunities, the substantial salary increases, simply never materialized for me. Despite my consistent high performance and often exceeding expectations, my compensation and position remained stagnant, a stark contrast to those around me. It was a silent, frustrating reality that slowly chipped away at my initial enthusiasm and belief in fairness. I would observe the celebratory emails announcing promotions, seeing familiar names, always white, always male, sometimes female, but never mine. It wasn't just about the title. It was about the recognition, the increased responsibility, and the clear message that my contributions were not valued in the same way. It felt like an invisible ceiling. This constant overlooking began to force me to internalize a painful question. Was I simply not good enough, or was something else at play? The insidious doubt crept in, making me second-guess my capabilities, despite the objective evidence of my success. It was a lonely battle, fought mostly within the confines of my own mind. The emotional toll of this prolonged underestimation was profound, a slow erosion of my self-worth and professional confidence. Each passing year without advancement felt like another validation of a silent judgment against me. I started to feel invisible, my voice unheard, my potential unseen by those who held the power to elevate me. It was as if I was trapped in a gilded cage, comfortable enough to stay, but unable to truly fly. The stability of the job was a comfort, but the stagnation was a constant, dull ache. I yearned for growth, for new challenges, for the chance to prove myself on a higher level, but the opportunities never came my way. I tried to seek feedback, asking my direct manager, Mr. Davies, about my career path and what steps I needed to take for advancement. His responses were always vague, filled with platitudes about patience and timing, never offering concrete advice or a clear roadmap for my progression. It felt like a deliberate deflection, a way to avoid addressing the real issue. That's when the painful realization truly solidified. My hard work, my dedication, and my undeniable talent were simply not enough in this environment. There was an unspoken barrier, a systemic bias that seemed to favor others over me, regardless of merit. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but an undeniable truth I could no longer ignore. A quiet anger began to simmer beneath the surface of my professional demeanor, a righteous indignation that grew with each passing month. The disillusionment was complete. The dream I had once held so tightly had been slowly suffocated by years of neglect and systemic unfairness. I knew I couldn't continue like this indefinitely. The internal debate raged within me. Should I stay and continue to hope for a change that might never come, or should I take matters into my own hands? The thought of leaving felt daunting, after investing so much of my life into Sterling and Company, but the thought of staying felt even more suffocating. I knew I had to make a move, And so, with a heavy heart but a determined spirit, I made a quiet decision. I would discreetly begin exploring other opportunities, a quiet act of rebellion against the system that had held me back for so long. It was a secret mission, a desperate attempt to reclaim my agency and find a place where my worth would truly be recognized. My determination to alter my trajectory was a quiet fire burning steadily within me. I knew I couldn't afford to be reckless, but I also couldn't afford to remain complacent. The decade of stagnation had taught me that hoping for change wasn't enough. I had to actively pursue it, even if it meant navigating a treacherous path. I began my discreet job search in the quiet hours of the night, long after Mr. Davies and the rest of the office had gone home. My laptop screen glowed in the darkness, illuminated by the faint light of job boards and company websites, each click a silent act of defiance. I meticulously cleared my browser history, leaving no digital breadcrumbs. The fear of being discovered was a constant companion, a knot in my stomach that tightened with every email sent and every resume uploaded. I knew that if Mr. Davies or anyone else at Sterling and Company found out, the consequences could be severe. My job, my financial stability, everything I had worked for, felt precariously balanced on a knife's edge. I vividly recall the countless times I had been passed over for promotions, each instance a fresh wound. There was the head of digital marketing role, given to a less experienced male colleague, and the senior account director position, which went to a woman who had been with the company for only 3 years. The pattern was undeniable, a cruel testament to the company's unspoken biases. Mr. Davies, my direct leader, embodied the subtle nature of the discrimination I faced. He was always polite, always professional, yet his eyes held a dismissive glint whenever I spoke about my ambitions. His words were often veiled, suggesting I was more suited for client relations rather than strategic leadership, subtly undermining my capabilities. His microaggressions were like tiny cuts, accumulating over time. "You're so articulate, Aisha, for someone from your background." Or, "You have such a natural charm. It's a shame we can't bottle it." These backhanded compliments, seemingly innocent, reinforced a narrative that my success was attributed to anything but my intellect or skill. They were constant reminders of my perceived otherness. It was infuriating to witness less qualified colleagues, often those who shared Mr. Davies's demographic, ascend the ranks with ease. They seemed to float upwards on a current of unspoken privilege, while I, despite my proven track record, remained anchored to the bottom. The injustice was a bitter taste in my mouth, a constant reminder of the unfairness of it all. Whispers circulated through the office, hushed conversations about diversity hires that never seemed to translate into actual leadership roles for people of color. The unsaid truths hung heavy in the air, a collective understanding among those of us who felt marginalized. We saw the cracks in the company's polished facade, even if others chose to ignore them. My growing awareness of these systemic issues, rather than just personal failures, became a crucial turning point. It wasn't just me, it was a pattern, a deeply entrenched problem within the company's culture. This realization, though painful, also brought a strange sense of clarity and a renewed purpose to my job search. The emotional burden of code switching was exhausting, constantly adjusting my language, my demeanor, my very essence to fit into a predominantly white corporate environment. I felt like I was performing a role every day, trying to be palatable, trying to be non-threatening, just to be seen as competent. It was a draining, thankless act. I started reaching out to mentors outside the company, women of color who had navigated similar corporate landscapes. Their advice was invaluable, their shared experiences a comforting balm. They encouraged me to trust my instincts, to document everything, and to remember my worth, even when the world tried to diminish it. The struggle to maintain my professionalism while feeling so deeply undervalued was a daily tightrope walk. I couldn't let my frustration show. I had to continue delivering excellent work, even as my spirit was being chipped away. It was a testament to my resilience, but also a heavy cross to bear. Then, a glimmer of hope, I secured my first interview for a senior marketing position at a rival firm. The call came late one evening, a quiet validation that my skills were indeed valuable, that there were places where my potential might be recognized. It was a small victory, but it ignited a spark within me. The internal conflict between my loyalty to Sterling and Company, the company where I had spent a decade of my life, and my desperate need for self-preservation was intense. I had given them so much, but they had given me so little in return, at least in terms of true advancement. My loyalty was being tested, and it was crumbling under the weight of neglect. A sense of impending change hung in the air, a quiet storm brewing beneath the surface of my carefully constructed professional life. I knew that something had to give, and I was determined that this time it would be in my favor. The decade of stagnation was about to end, one way or another. The external interviews brought a surge of confidence I hadn't felt in years. Each conversation was a reminder of my skills, my experience, and my market value. I walked a little taller, spoke with more conviction, and felt a renewed sense of purpose. The thought of a fresh start, a place where my contributions would be truly seen, was exhilarating. One afternoon, I had a near miss, a heart-stopping moment that reminded me of the precariousness of my secret. I had left a job search website open on my desktop for a moment too long, and Mr. Davies walked past my cubicle. My heart leaped into my throat as I quickly minimized the window, hoping he hadn't noticed. He just kept walking, but the incident left me shaken. Then came the day of reckoning, an ordinary Tuesday that would forever alter the course of my life. I received an unexpected email from Mr. Davies' assistant. Mr. Davies requests your presence in his office immediately. The abruptness of the summons, devoid of any context, sent a chill down my spine. I knew, instinctively, that something was wrong. I walked into his office to find him sitting stiffly behind his large mahogany desk, his face a mask of cold professionalism. There was no usual pleasantry, no small talk. He gestured to the chair opposite him, and the air in the room felt heavy, charged with an unspoken accusation. My palms began to sweat. "Aisha," he began, his voice devoid of warmth, "we've become aware that you've been actively seeking other employment opportunities." He held up a printout, a screenshot of my LinkedIn profile with an open-to-work banner and a job application email. My carefully constructed secret had been exposed, and the world seemed to tilt on its axis. The feeling of being exposed was overwhelming, a wave of shock and disbelief washing over me. My mind raced, trying to process how they had found out, who had betrayed me. The immediate humiliation was searing, a hot flush spreading across my face. I felt utterly vulnerable, caught in a trap I hadn't anticipated. Mr. Davies continued, his tone unwavering. "This demonstrates a clear lack of loyalty and a distraction from your duties here at Sterling and Company. We value commitment, and your actions indicate you're no longer aligned with our company's values." His words felt like a cruel irony, given their decade-long lack of commitment to my career. The irony was not lost on me. I was being fired for seeking the very recognition and advancement they had consistently denied me. It was a perverse twist of fate, a punishment for daring to seek what was rightfully mine. The injustice of it all burned fiercely within me, a silent scream trapped in my throat. He then laid out the formal termination, a cold, clinical recitation of company policy. There was a small severance package, barely enough to cover a few months of expenses, contingent on signing a non-disclosure agreement. It was a clear attempt to silence me, to make me disappear quietly, as if my decade of service meant nothing. Despite the internal turmoil, I maintained a surprising composure in that moment. My voice was steady as I asked for clarification, for a formal letter, for details about my final paycheck. I refused to give him the satisfaction of seeing me break down, even as my world crumbled around me. My dignity, at least, remained intact. The walk out of the office was a blur, a slow-motion nightmare. Colleagues whispered and stared, their eyes following me as I gathered my personal belongings from my cubicle. The weight of their gazes felt like physical blows, each one a reminder of my public humiliation. It was a walk of shame, undeserved and deeply painful. The feeling of a decade of hard work, of countless sacrifices, being erased in a matter of minutes was devastating. All the late nights, the early mornings, the dedication, the loyalty, it all amounted to nothing in the face of their arbitrary decision. It was a profound sense of loss, a decade stolen from me. The initial wave of humiliation and despair washed over me as I stepped out of the building into the bustling Atlanta street. The city lights, usually a source of comfort, now seemed to mock my newfound unemployment. I felt adrift, rudderless, with no clear path forward. The future, once so bright, had suddenly become a terrifying blank slate. Reaching my car, I fumbled for the keys, my hands shaking uncontrollably. As I started the engine, the tears finally came, hot and stinging, blurring my vision. The weight of the injustice, the betrayal, and the crushing uncertainty of my future pressed down on me, suffocating me with its intensity. This was it, the immediate uncertainty of her future, the unexpected chaos beginning to unfold around me. My life, meticulously planned and carefully constructed, had been shattered in an instant, leaving me to pick up the pieces of a decade that had ended not with a bang, but with a cruel, unjust dismissal. The first few days after the firing were a disorienting blur of shock, disbelief, and a profound sense of emptiness. I drifted through my apartment, the silence amplifying the echo of Mr. Davies's cold words. It felt surreal, as if I was watching my own life unfold from a distance, unable to intervene or change the devastating narrative. The financial stress immediately became a crushing weight on my shoulders. Rent, utilities, student loans, the bills loomed large, a stark reminder of my sudden precarity. The small severance package felt like a cruel joke, barely enough to sustain me for a few months. The stability I had painstakingly built over a decade vanished overnight. The feeling of betrayal was raw and deeply personal. It wasn't just a company. It was a place where I had invested my time, my talent, and my trust. To be discarded so easily, after years of unwavering dedication, felt like a profound personal affront. It was a wound that cut deeper than mere financial loss. I eventually gathered the courage to reach out to my closest friends and family, sharing the devastating news through tear-filled phone calls. Their immediate reactions were a mix of shock, anger, and unwavering support. They validated my feelings, confirming that this was not my fault, but a clear act of injustice. There was an initial, powerful urge to retreat, to hide from the world and lick my wounds in solitude. The thought of facing anyone, of explaining what had happened, felt unbearable. I wanted to disappear, to escape the shame and humiliation that clung to me like a shroud. It was a dark, isolating period. The internal battle with self-doubt was relentless. Had I done something wrong? Was I truly not good enough? Despite the logical understanding that this was discrimination, the insidious voice of self-blame whispered constantly, trying to chip away at my resolve. It was a fight to reclaim my own narrative, my own worth. I found myself replaying past instances of subtle discrimination, the microaggressions, the overlooked opportunities, the dismissive glances. Suddenly, the pattern became glaringly clear, a mosaic of unfairness that I had perhaps subconsciously downplayed or ignored for too long. This wasn't an isolated incident, it was a culmination. My community, however, became an unexpected source of strength. Friends brought meals, offered comfort, and simply listened without judgment. My church family offered prayers and practical assistance. It was a powerful reminder that I was not alone, that I had a network of love and support to lean on during this difficult time. A pivotal conversation with my grandmother, a wise and resilient woman who had faced her own share of discrimination in the South, became a turning point. "Aisha," she said, her voice firm, "this ain't just about you. This is about all of us. You got to decide if you're gonna let them break you, or if you're gonna fight for what's right." Her words resonated deeply. Her wisdom sparked a profound realization. This wasn't just about my personal job loss. It was about a broader issue of systemic bias, of racial inequality in the workplace that extended far beyond Sterling and Company. My experience, painful as it was, could serve as a testament to a larger problem that needed to be addressed. The shift from personal pain to a growing sense of righteous anger was palpable. The despair began to recede, replaced by a burning desire for justice. I realized that my silence would only perpetuate the cycle. My voice, however small, had the power to disrupt it. This anger wasn't destructive, it was empowering. The idea that my experience could be a catalyst for change, not just for myself but for others, began to take root. I started to see my firing not as an ending, but as a forced redirection, an opportunity to contribute to something bigger than myself. It was a daunting thought, but also incredibly liberating. A quiet resolve began to form within me, a steeling of my spirit. I would not let this injustice stand. I would not allow Sterling and Company to dismiss me and continue their discriminatory practices unchecked. My grandmother's words echoed in my mind. I had to fight, not just for myself, but for those who might come after me. This was the first glimmer of empowerment, the true beginning of the chaos taking a new, purposeful form. It was no longer a chaotic unraveling of my life, but a deliberate, strategic disruption aimed at challenging the status quo. My journey from victim to advocate had officially begun, fueled by a decade of unseen struggle. My determination solidified into an unshakable resolve, fueled by the deep-seated injustice I had experienced. The initial shock and despair had given way to a clear-eyed vision of what needed to be done. I knew this wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. My first step was to immerse myself in research, devouring every piece of information I could find on employment law, discrimination lawsuits, and workers' rights. I learned about the nuances of at-will, employment versus discriminatory termination, and the importance of documentation. Knowledge, I realized, would be my strongest weapon. Through a community contact, I was introduced to Ms. Ramirez, a formidable civil rights attorney known for her unwavering commitment to justice in Atlanta. Her office, though modest, exuded a quiet strength, and her direct, no-nonsense approach immediately put me at ease. I knew I had found the right person to guide me. Ms. Ramirez listened intently to my story, her expression unwavering, occasionally nodding or jotting down notes. Her initial assessment was cautiously optimistic, acknowledging the challenges of proving discrimination, but also recognizing the strength of my decade-long performance record and the suspicious circumstances of my dismissal. She saw the pattern I had recognized. The process of gathering evidence began immediately, a meticulous and often emotionally draining task. I compiled every performance review, every email, every text message that hinted at the subtle biases I had faced. I recalled specific instances where I was excluded or undermined, trying to piece together the full narrative of my experience. The fear of retaliation still lingered, a cold whisper in the back of my mind. Sterling and Company was a powerful entity in Atlanta, and I knew they wouldn't take kindly to being challenged. But my desire for justice, for accountability, was stronger than any fear. I was done being silent. My voice would be heard. The emotional labor of reliving past slights and discrimination during our legal preparations was immense. Each memory, each dismissive comment, each overlooked opportunity brought back a fresh wave of pain and anger. Ms. Ramirez, however, was incredibly supportive, guiding me through the process with empathy and strength. Her belief in my case was a constant source of encouragement. She saw not just a disgruntled former employee, but a woman who had been systematically undervalued and unjustly dismissed. Her unwavering confidence in the merits of our claim bolstered my own resolve, making me feel less alone in this daunting fight. We discussed the potential for a public component to our legal strategy, a social justice angle that could bring broader awareness to the issue. Ms. Ramirez explained the power of public opinion in cases like mine, especially in a city like Atlanta, where civil rights history ran deep. It was a bold move, but one I felt compelled to consider. I cautiously reached out to former colleagues, discreetly inquiring if they had experienced similar issues. Some were hesitant, fearing repercussions, but a few, emboldened by my courage, shared their own stories of being overlooked or marginalized. Their testimonies, though anonymous, added weight to our growing body of evidence. The realization that others had faced similar issues at Sterling and Company was both heartbreaking and validating. It confirmed that my experience was not an anomaly, but part of a larger, systemic problem within the company's culture. This collective experience fueled my determination, transforming my personal fight into a shared cause. The decision to pursue a formal complaint, to no longer quietly accept my fate, felt like a monumental step. It was a declaration of war against the subtle discrimination that had plagued my career for so long. This wasn't just about my job anymore. It was about holding powerful institutions accountable for their biases. The first official letter from Ms. Ramirez's office landed on Sterling and Company's desk, a formal notification of our intent to pursue legal action. It was a clear, unambiguous declaration, a gauntlet thrown down. I imagined Mr. Davies's reaction, his smug confidence likely turning to surprise, perhaps even a flicker of concern. The company's initial response was dismissive, a boilerplate letter from their legal team denying any wrongdoing and reiterating their at-will employment policy. They underestimated my resolve, believing I would simply fade away. But they had no idea the fire they had ignited within me. As I read their dismissive letter, I felt a surge of power, a quiet strength I hadn't known I possessed. The chaos that had begun with my unjust firing was now directed and purposeful, a force aimed at dismantling the very structures that had sought to keep me down. My fight for justice had truly begun. The legal battle intensified, transforming into a grueling, protracted process that tested every fiber of my being. Sterling and Company's legal team, a formidable and well-funded entity, immediately went on the offensive, attempting to discredit me at every turn. They dug into my past, scrutinizing every detail, trying to find any flaw to exploit. Their primary tactic was to paint me as a disgruntled employee, someone seeking revenge rather than justice. Mr. Davies, under oath, adamantly denied any discriminatory practices, portraying himself as a fair and unbiased leader. His composure was unnerving, a stark contrast to the truth I knew in my heart. The emotional toll of depositions and interrogations was immense. I had to relive the painful memories, answer intrusive questions, and maintain my composure under intense pressure. It felt like I was constantly on trial, not just for my case, but for my character, my integrity, and my very worth. Ms. Ramirez, however, proved to be a strategic genius, anticipating their every move and expertly countering their arguments. She meticulously prepared me for each session, arming me with facts and helping me articulate my experiences with clarity and conviction. Her calm demeanor was a steady anchor in the storm. Through our discovery process, we uncovered more disturbing patterns of discrimination within the company. We found evidence of pay disparities, a lack of diversity in leadership roles, and a disproportionate number of minority employees being terminated for vague reasons. The systemic nature of the problem became undeniable, a damning indictment of Sterling and Company's culture. Slowly, the media began to take notice. Small local reports emerged, cautiously covering the lawsuit, hinting at the larger implications. It was a delicate balance, as Ms. Ramirez advised caution, but the growing public interest was a powerful tool, adding pressure on the company to address the allegations. Despite the risks, I made the conscious decision to speak out publicly. I gave interviews to local news outlets, sharing my story with a raw honesty that resonated with many. It was terrifying to expose myself, to lay bare my pain and vulnerability, but I knew it was necessary to bring attention to the issue. The support from community leaders and advocacy groups in Atlanta was overwhelming and deeply moving. They organized rallies, shared my story on social media, and offered their platforms for me to speak. Their solidarity transformed my individual fight into a collective movement, giving me strength when I felt weak. However, speaking out also brought its own set of challenges. I faced online harassment and backlash from anonymous accounts and company loyalists who accused me of being a race baiter or ungrateful. These attacks were painful, but I reminded myself that they were a sign that my message was hitting home. The importance of my support system during this period cannot be overstated. My family, Ms. Ramirez, and my closest friends were my rocks, keeping me grounded and reminding me of the bigger picture. Their unwavering belief in me was the fuel that kept me going when the path seemed too difficult. The financial strain of the legal fight was immense, even with Ms. Ramirez working on a contingency basis. I relied on my meager savings, and my community stepped in with small donations and practical help. It was a testament to their faith in my cause, a shared investment in the pursuit of justice. Sterling and Company eventually offered a settlement, a low-ball attempt to silence me and make the case disappear quietly. It was a substantial sum, enough to alleviate my immediate financial worries, but it came with strict non-disclosure clauses. They wanted to buy my silence, to bury the truth, but I refused. My resolve was unwavering. This was never just about the money. It was about accountability, about justice, about ensuring that no one else had to endure what I had. I would not be bought. I would not be silenced. My fight was for something far greater than a financial payout. The chaos, that had begun with my unjust firing was now a public spectacle, the company's reputation hanging precariously in the balance. My refusal of their settlement sent a clear message. I was not backing down, and I would see this through to the very end, no matter the cost. The case gained national attention, becoming a powerful symbol of the ongoing struggle for workplace equity. Major news outlets, drawn by the compelling narrative and the systemic issues it exposed, picked up Aisha's story. It was no longer just a local lawsuit. It was a national conversation about race, power, and justice in corporate America. More former employees, emboldened by my courage and the growing media scrutiny, began to come forward with their own stories of discrimination at Sterling and Company. Their collective testimonies painted a damning picture, corroborating my claims and adding undeniable weight to our case. The dam had broken, and the truth was pouring out. The company's stock took a significant hit as investors reacted to the negative publicity and the looming threat of a major lawsuit. Public pressure mounted, with advocacy groups organizing boycotts and social media campaigns demanding accountability. Sterling and Company, once a respected name, was now synonymous with racial bias. Mr. Davies, the man who had so coldly dismissed me, found himself at the center of a firestorm. He faced intense internal scrutiny from the company's board and widespread public condemnation. His carefully constructed image as a fair leader crumbled under the weight of mounting evidence and public outrage. The emotional weight of being a public figure in this fight was immense. Every interview, every public appearance, every social media post was scrutinized. I became a reluctant symbol, carrying the hopes and frustrations of many who had experienced similar injustices. It was a heavy burden, but one I accepted with grace. My testimony, delivered with raw honesty and quiet dignity, resonated deeply with audiences across the country. I spoke not just of my personal pain, but of the systemic barriers that people of color face in the workplace. My words were a powerful call for change, a plea for a more equitable and just society. Sterling and Company's attempts at damage control were transparent and ultimately ineffective. They issued generic apologies, promised internal investigations, and announced new diversity initiatives that felt hollow and insincere. The public saw through their performative actions, demanding real, tangible change, not just empty words. The collective outrage from the community and beyond was a powerful force. People shared their own stories, organized protests, and demanded that companies like Sterling and Company be held accountable. It was a testament to the power of collective action, demonstrating that individual stories can ignite a movement. Under immense pressure, Mr. Davies was eventually forced to resign from his position, his career irrevocably tarnished. It was a significant victory, a clear sign that the company was finally acknowledging the severity of the situation. His departure sent a strong message that discriminatory practices would no longer be tolerated. In the wake of the scandal, Sterling and Company announced sweeping internal investigations and committed to significant, transparent diversity and inclusion initiatives. They hired independent consultants, revised their promotion policies, and began mandatory anti-bias training. The chaos I had unleashed was forcing profound, systemic change. The sense of vindication was immense, a profound relief that the truth had finally prevailed. Yet, I also understood that this was just the beginning. The fight for true equity was ongoing, a continuous effort that required vigilance and sustained commitment. My victory was a battle won, but the war for justice continued. The chaos had forced accountability, not just for Mr. Davies, but for the entire corporate structure that had allowed such discrimination to fester. It was a powerful demonstration that when individuals stand up against injustice, even the most entrenched systems can be compelled to change. Aisha stood tall, no longer the overlooked employee, but a symbol of resilience, a beacon of hope for countless others. Her voice, once silenced, now echoed across the nation, inspiring a new generation to demand fairness and equity in every aspect of their lives. Her journey had become a testament to the power of one person's courage. The legal resolution was a resounding victory, not just for me, but for the principle of justice itself. The court ruled decisively in my favor, acknowledging the pattern of discrimination and the unjust nature of my dismissal. It was a powerful affirmation of my truth, a validation of everything I had endured. The financial compensation I received was substantial, a recognition of my decade of undervalued work and the emotional distress I had suffered. It provided a new sense of security and freedom, a tangible reward for my perseverance. But more importantly, it was a clear message that such injustices would not go unpunished. Beyond the monetary award, Sterling and Company was mandated to implement significant reforms, including comprehensive diversity audits, transparent promotion criteria, and mandatory anti-bias training for all leadership. This commitment to systemic change was the true triumph, ensuring that others would not suffer the same fate. I used a significant portion of my settlement to establish the Aisha Grant Foundation for Workplace Equity, a nonprofit dedicated to fighting discrimination and promoting inclusive work environments. It was my way of turning my pain into purpose, ensuring that my experience would benefit countless others. The foundation provides vital legal aid, mentorship programs, and educational resources for individuals, particularly women of color, who face discrimination in their careers. We empower them with the knowledge and support they need to advocate for themselves, to understand their rights, and to navigate complex corporate landscapes. I became a sought-after speaker, sharing my story at conferences, universities, and corporate events across the country. My message resonated deeply, that standing up for yourself, even when it feels impossible, can create ripples of change far beyond your immediate circumstances. It was incredibly fulfilling to inspire others. The joy of helping others navigate similar challenges was immeasurable. Hearing their stories, offering guidance, and witnessing their own journeys of empowerment brought a profound sense of satisfaction. It was a continuous cycle of healing and growth, transforming individual pain into collective strength. Rebuilding my life, not just financially but emotionally and spiritually, was a journey of profound self-discovery. I shed the weight of years of underestimation, embracing my true worth and potential. My spirit, once bruised, was now vibrant and resilient, ready to embrace new beginnings. The deep satisfaction of turning pain into purpose was the most valuable outcome of all. My experience, once a source of humiliation, had become a powerful tool for advocacy and change. It proved that even the darkest moments can be transformed into beacons of hope and progress. My community celebrated my victory, embracing me as a true local hero. They had stood by me through the darkest days, and now they shared in my triumph. Their unwavering support was a constant reminder of the strength found in solidarity, a testament to the power of a united front. Mr. Davies's fate became a cautionary tale of unchecked power and systemic bias. His career was effectively over, his reputation in tatters. It was a stark reminder that actions have consequences, and that eventually the truth will always come to light, even in the most protected circles. The lasting impact on Sterling and Company was significant. They underwent a cultural transformation, becoming a more equitable and inclusive workplace. While progress is always ongoing, my case served as a catalyst, forcing them to confront their biases and commit to genuine, lasting change. I found new professional opportunities, not as an employee, but as a consultant and advisor, working on my own terms. My expertise in digital marketing, now combined with my advocacy for equity, allowed me to choose projects that aligned with my values, building a career that was truly meaningful. My legacy was clear. I had proven that standing up for yourself, for your dignity, and for what is right can indeed change the world, one workplace, one policy, one conversation at a time. It was a testament to the power of resilience and the unwavering pursuit of justice. And so, my story ends not with bitterness, but with hope and empowerment. If you're watching this and facing your own crossroads of discrimination or underestimation, remember that your worth isn't determined by someone else's inability to see it. Have you ever had someone underestimate you only to prove them wrong? Share your story and know that your voice matters. Thank you for listening to my journey.